Hello, everybody. This is Christina Fasonic, broadcasting live from Wheeling, West Virginia. And tonight we have another new writer for you, it's very exciting that we've been able to feature some of who I think are some of the best writers in this part of the country on our live show a couple of nights a week. I want to introduce my co-host, Dr. Damian Dressick. Hi, Damian.
Hello.
How are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm here.
Me too. I've been suffering technical difficulties.
Yes, I saw that. Oh, you think you're good now?
I am good.
Okay, are you ready to introduce James?
I am. Now, there is a special place in my heart for James Charlesworth. He is not only an amazing writer, but makes a big contribution to the literary world through his awesome literary citizenship. He's also our Twitter guru for the Writers' Conference of Northern Appalachia. James, his writing has appeared in Natural Bridge, and he was awarded a finalist status in Glimmer Train's Short Story Award for New Writers. For those of you who are new, Glimmer Train it does no longer exist, but it was probably one of the absolutely best regarded of literary magazine ever. He's also the recipient of the Martin Dibner Fellowship from the Maine Community Foundation, and his first novel is The Patricide of George Benjamin Hill. He's originally from Pennsylvania and currently lives in Boston, and it is our great pleasure to bring you James Charlesworth tonight.
Hello, James.
Hello. Hello, Damian and Christina.
Howdy.
Great to see you. It's very much a pleasure to be on WANA Live.
We're okay.
Thank you very much. You're doing well?
Yes.
This is great, and thank you for thank you for tweeting for us as well. You do a great job for the conference. We appreciate that.
I try. I do my best. We just got the Twitter handle up and running for anyone out there who might be watching this and wants to follow WANA Live and the Writers' Conference of Northern Appalachia. We are at WACON Appalachia. So WCON Appalachia. That's the Twitter handle. Follow us.
It's like a radio station. WCON Appalachia.
It is. It is.
There it is. It's our Twitter handle. So if anybody wants to follow us on Twitter and see what James has to say about what we're doing, we will have a very big announcement pretty soon. So it'd be a good idea to get on our feed to find out all about that.
And also, if you are a fan of WACONA Live, who we have on is announced on the Twitter feed. So if you say, there's so much going on in my life, I can't keep it all straight, you'll get an update talking about the wonderful writers we've got, and you don't even have to worry about it yourself. James is keeping a calendar for you.
I'm here for you people.
Yes, unlike us, Damian, we are derelict in our duties sometimes.
No, you guys do a great job. You always get fantastic writers on the show. So, and doing it
more so than tonight.
We've been blessed in that way.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that we got an outdoor component today.
Always outside.
I just moved to a new place in February and have a porch now. And I was thinking about going outside, but I just didn't trust that, there's in Boston where I live, there's always like somebody standing right outside your apartment with a jackhammer. So I just did not want to risk that. So I figured I would be inside and keep it quiet.
You have a porch in Boston. Wow. The Patricide of George Benjamin Hill is doing really, really well.
My day job is doing really, really well.
Well, and we would see that if it wasn't for this rogue construction that could, pop up at any moment, right?
Right. I'm also right in the flight path of all the these military helicopters and medical helicopters. So it's kind of noisy. I mean, it's like any city, I guess.
Yes. Unlike here in Wheeling, where the most you might hear is a howling dog.
Don't encourage that. It can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, this is true. Well, we will let you read, and we'll be back on in a few minutes after you're finished, okay?
All right. What are we going to hear from tonight, James?
You're going to hear from the novel.
Very cool. I've been looking forward to this.
All right.
We'll be back.
Okay, so now you're stuck with me. So I'm James Charlesworth. I'm going to read to you tonight from my novel, The Patricide of George Benjamin Hill. Here it is. Here's the cover, extreme close-up. Patricide came out last January. And it's not the first book I wrote. It's the first novel I published, but it's not the first book I wrote. Depending on my definition of finished, this is either the first or the third or the seventh novel I've finished. So all of you people out there working on your third or fourth or fifth novel, you're going to get there. Just keep at it. So during all of those failed starts of previous novels, one thing that I learned when I started this novel, I decided I wanted to have a little elevator pitch, so a little one-sentence synopsis that I could sort of have in my back pocket, sort of trot out whenever anybody asks that inevitable question that all writers hate of, what's your book about? And also to keep my own brain sort of like on target, so I didn't wander off into the weeds, which happened on some of those previous books. So what I had very early on when I started this book was this one-sentence synopsis, was that it's about 4 adult siblings who decide to kill their father. And then whenever I would say that to people, I would immediately backpedal and say, but it's not as dark as it sounds. It's not as dark as it sounds, which I think was maybe kind of a lie, but that was what I told them anyway. So that was my little one-sentence synopsis that I started with. But the book's obviously about a lot more than that. It's really about the lives of these 4 siblings, these 4 estranged siblings who are the offspring of the notorious and eponymous George Benjamin Hill, who in the book is a Dust Bowl orphan turned self-made millionaire in fast food and oil, who's sort of destroyed 2 families on his way to financial success. And the book jumps around in time a lot. You get to see these 4 kids of his when they're kids, and then when they're adults. During the main timeline of the story, they're middle-aged and estranged and sort of living these wrecked lives in the 4 corners of the country. One lives in Alaska, one lives in Las Vegas, one lives in New York City, and one lives in Miami. And their father is semi-retired from his various money-grabbing schemes, and he's enormously wealthy and kind of embroiled in scandal. And the 4 siblings sort of find themselves converging on his 300-acre horse ranch outside Omaha, Nebraska, for a final confrontation with the father they never had, which is how my jacket copy so eloquently puts it. So I'm just going to read to you the prologue. It's really short. Just gives you a sense of kind of the style and the writing, and hopefully makes you interested to read more. Alaska. 4 hours in, his plan nearly dies. A storm whites out the sky above Icy Bay, obscuring the 18,000-foot glacial dump of Mount St. Elias. He has piloted his second-hand DHC Beaver down from Fairbanks on a day that dawned brilliant with autumn, the wilderness a thousand-hued carpet. Now the system is stormed in from the southwest, roiling off the Pacific and blooming silver on the ridgeline of the Wrangell Mountains, the corridor of light from the retrofitted headlamps illuminating the precipitation that rattles the airframe and freezes on impact. He is a veteran of this weather, has nearly 20 years of bush experience, has piloted this battered vessel as far north as Nome, as far south as Kodiak Island, has guided it through storms like the end of the world to set it down on strips of fireweed the size of city driveways, has logged more hours than half the so-called pilots flying commercial jets in the lower 48. But today was the one day he had wished for calm weather, had hoped for clear skies to give him time to think. From Juneau, he will catch a flight south to Seattle, from there on to Las Vegas, and then by car east to Omaha via Denver. But first, there is the process of selling his plane. He has already sold his pickup truck, his guns, his hunting and trapping equipment, has already foregone every possession, including the cabin and parcel of land straddling the Canadian border where he thought he would spend the remainder of his life. Why has he done this? He has done it at the behest of the calling that has tormented him for the past 3 years. He's done it for the money that will help him to procure the object that has become his preoccupation. The motive that has led him to track down and send letters to the 3 siblings he's not seen in over 20 years. That has led him now, in the year of his 41st birthday, to be on his way to Omaha, Nebraska, to find the man he now refuses to call father. It almost dies up here, in the turbulent solitude of 15,000 feet. Impact ice in the air intake causing the engine to run rough, a drop in manifold pressure. The tachometer flickers as ice begins to form in the carburetor. The engine coughs and then is silent. He lowers the nose into the whine of wind and procession of cloud, flaps at cruise to maintain airspeed, opens the throttle and primes with the wobble pump. Up ahead, invisible, is the face of a mountain, a cliffside, a spectacular death. If the restart fails, a dead engine landing is impossible. He closes his eyes and waits for it, and then, against every lesson life has taught him up to this point, the engine crackles and returns. The lights of the instrument panel dazzle. He re-engages the controls and imagines he can hear the landing gear scraping the frozen peaks of the foothills. The system passes, and he is aloft in the blue dome over Glacier Bay, the archipelago speckling the golden ocean, an obscured face behind the grimy glass of this prop plane that has served him for 2 decades. The sun is at his back and showing purple on the snow-covered mountainside, assuring him, yes, you were saved today. You were saved from certain destruction in order to finish what you started. As he radios in his descent, he watches the light prism on the water and the tin rooftops of a salmon town and the icy ridge above and whispers something inaudible. Not a prayer, he doesn't believe in God, but a pledge. To his twin sister, to his half-brothers, to his estranged mother, and finally, to the man he refuses to call father, the man whose far-off mansion on the plains marks the X spot of this 3,000-mile journey, the man whose life story will always serve as preamble to his own. So, here we go.
All right. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Great. So I have to know, as I was listening to you tell the story about the elevator pitch and sort of, I can imagine people, when you tell them that first line, people kind of backing away from you a little bit like,
Go ahead.
But I wondered, this is a common question that we all get as writers. Where did this story come from?
Yeah, I'll try to keep that answer short. I mean, first of all, yes, whenever I would say that one sentence, I would get one of 2 responses. Either people would laugh and I would think, okay, they might be receptive to this, although it's not a comedy, or they would sort of, like you said, sort of back up. And I would be like, it's okay. It's not as bad as it sounds. But where it came from, really, I told you that there were other novels that I worked on for a long time before this. It really stemmed out of one of those. There was a novel that I worked on for probably 5 years, and it was about sort of a father and children relationship. It was about this family living in Burlington, Vermont, and their father became obsessed with there's a lake monster in Lake Champlain in Vermont. And so the father became obsessed with sort of chasing and finding proof of this lake monster. And then one summer he vanished. while he was pursuing the lake monster. And then his two twin siblings were sort of left to kind of deal with that, you know, and that how they felt about this father who was a real powerful and creative presence in their lives, because he would take them looking for this monster with them, and yet who had this really childish pursuit that as the twins get older, they would begin to, like, he sacrificed it for something so ridiculous. But that novel sort of spiraled out of control. I just lost control of it.
I want to read that book too, though.
It had some really great parts, but it was like 800 pages and it was just too much of everything. But
what a great concept, though.
Yeah, people say that a lot. I mean, I might go back to it at some point, but right now I think of it kind of a practice book. But what came out of that was my writing was always about sort of fathers and children, and I felt like I needed to come up with some plot that would kind of hold it together for me. And so when I started thinking about the most sort of plotty expression of, you know, resentment that kids have toward their father and confused emotions, Patricide just snuck its way right in, and I was like, yeah. So that's kind of where this book came from.
I just assumed, as a Penguins fan living in Bruins country, that it would be easy for you to imagine murderous violence.
Oh yes, I am forced to contemplate murderous violence. I have a friend who's from Pittsburgh, and every time the Penguins are in Boston, we go to see the game, and every single time, inevitably, the Penguins lose. And so when we're walking out, we just have to deal with, and we always go like with Penguins gear, so everyone knows. And we just have to listen to Boston fans who are the most obnoxious. Sorry if anybody listening is any of my Boston friends, but you know it's true. Just the most obnoxious fans ever.
Well, I love the prologue.
Well, Dono has a. So sorry, Damien.
Oh no, I'll see
Donna
my moments to Donna for sure.
Do you want? Should I read? I guess everybody can see it. I didn't know if you were going to read it.
I think everybody can see it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've never flown a plane. So that's the trick of research, right? Is just finding enough information that you sound like you know exactly what you're talking about. And in this case, I will divulge my secret. For that section, I went online and I downloaded a flight manual for a DHC Beaver bush plane. And there was a section that was like, what to do if your engine stalls. And it was the language I pulled. It was like, impact ice will form in the carburetor. And I was like, thank you very much. I'll take that and just put it. So it's just, it's finding the details that are gonna clinch it for the reader and make it just have that verisimilitude that, you know, is what great writing does. It just transports you to whatever it is you're reading about.
And what makes that so brilliant is the way you dimensionalize the character, because it's the description, and people can do that. And why you're awesome is because you got that business going on about against every lesson, because it's like only a real person would think that through. It just makes me believe in this character so much as an individual. I could be mowed down by at an airport. No. Yeah.
I mean, that's a style that I worked on for this book, was kind of like, kind of embedding the character in every line, so that, you know, when you're reading about a character, it's filtered through their consciousness. And so, like, I think that's an example of one of the things that I try to do a lot, is have the details kind of also give you the character's perspective on what they're experiencing. And so that allows, you're also building character, right? You're also sort of telling the reader about the character while you're giving the details. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it's like you want to have every line do at least 2 or 3 jobs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, if the character would have been like, woohoo, that would be a different character than one who was afraid and crying or something. That would tell us so much about that character.
Right. I mean, and that's really important. That's, that's something that's really, that's one of the things that's hard to learn, I think, when you're first writing, is how to sort of inoculate the language with character. It can be, I think it's tough at first, but it's something I've sort of focused on a lot, and it was definitely a big part of this book.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And this is available, James, now on Amazon and IndieBound. Is that right? For easy purchase.
Yeah, you should be able to get it anywhere. I mean, it came out last January, so the hardcover's been out 18 months, so you're probably not going to find it in a bookstore. Supposedly there was a paperback coming out next spring, but the last I heard about that was the world changing. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But yeah, if you go on Amazon, go on IndieBound, which, if you're not familiar with IndieBound, it's a great way to order books while simultaneously supporting local independent bookstores, which is something we've got to do, especially now, because a lot of them, their brick and mortar locations obviously are not open. They're all really kind of struggling to get by. So, if you can support an independent bookstore or any independent local store, really, in any way you can, that's something you should do. There we go, indiebound.org.
Yeah, we had Arlen Hess from City Books in Pittsburgh on last week.
Yep, I listened to that. Yeah.
Was it Monday?
They're all blending together now.
I think it was last Monday, because Thursday was
Monday.
Thursday, yeah.
That's right.
But what? So you were going to say Arlen Hess?
Oh yeah, just that she's the owner of City Books, and again, we could not agree with you more. Support your independent bookstores. As writers, as members of the literary community, these people are so important to us. They provide a way to get books, a place for people to get together with ideas, places to read, to hear readings. So important, and it won't be easy to come back if they go away. We have to remember that. Absolutely.
It's very true.
Yes.
So thank you, James. I think everybody's got a great taste of the book. Christina, we have Barbara Edelman coming up, do we not?
That is correct, on Monday, and then on Thursday of next week, Jared Conti will be on.
Very cool.
So we've got a nice mix of voices coming up next week. I'm always excited about, I always say I can't wait till this next writer, and I mean it every single time. I can't wait to see who we have on and what they're going to share with us. So
I think we had some control over who was on the show.
Right.
I just shared.
Great. I mean, I've started every Monday and Thursday, and you really have been getting some great people. So, and I'm sure as more and more people find out about it, it's just gonna get even better. You're gonna have people banging on the door. Let me read for Kona Live. So
you know what? That started our second week. People started contacting us saying, I have a new book out, or, with everything that's going on, no one is doing live readings, and can I come on and talk about my book or my story or whatever? So we've been really fortunate, and I think grateful that we could provide a platform for writers.
Yeah. It's things like this are super important. I mean, they've taken the place of what was once done at the independent bookstores we've been talking about, and some independent bookstores are still kind of running things like this, but it's really important. I know I have several friends who had a book come out this year, and it's been a real struggle. And I mean, hardship is real. Like, there are people who are suffering a lot more than like somebody who's having trouble promoting a book. But at the same time, this is things that people have been working on for years and years, and you want to try to make sure that they can sort of get their work out there as much as possible. And so Wacona Live is doing some great work with that, and it's a pleasure to give my own spot. It was a blast. It's always great to see the two of you.
Well, great to see you too, James. Thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
See you.
Have a good night.
All right.